Make Devlog. Great.
Ah, right.
So normally game devs start with an interesting idea. The creator explains the cool game mechanics and shows the progress from the ground up. I can't really do that though because I got a little ahead of myself. So instead I decided to make this devlog to catch you all up to speed on everything that I've done. But before I dive into the game, let's take a look back to how it started. It was late 2019. I was finishing up my final semester to get my bachelor's degree in computer science, and just like everyone else, I thought, well, what's next? Of course, I wanted a job in tech, seeing as how great the pay was, but gaming was always my favorite thing to do. So I began to ask myself, what about game development? I decided to revolve my university's final project around making games for the NES. I had such a blast diving headfirst into the game dev logic that I really felt like this is something I could do. I started watching more videos on game development and how to start making games from scratch. That's when I came across the video that really stood out to me. How Stardew Valley was made by only one person. Now, before you comment down below how indie game dreams are just dreams, I know, but this devlog isn't about my dream game. It's about my very first game made in Unity. First of many, I hope. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to Mindspace for giving me the idea to do this video in the first place. The Bound is a 3D first-person horror game that follows a man as he discovers his family has been taken. The backstory is a work in progress, but I thought it could be a simple idea of just collecting a couple of items and facing the killer with the items obtained. With that idea in mind and a rough image in my head of the terrain, I opened the asset store and downloaded as many horror-style assets as I could get my hands on. I thought if I could put together enough cool-looking assets, maybe my ideas will come to life. Since my background was in computer science, I knew I wasn't going to struggle too much with coding, and that the real challenge would most likely come from how the game looks. So instead, I grabbed a couple of free assets and even bought some assets I thought might work, and well, this is what I came up with. So right now I have the player set up with simple movement scripts to jump and look around, as well as the appropriate animation controller for when the player walks side to side to play that corresponding animation and so forth. After making sure the player movement was settled, I imported an asset to place a couple of gems around the map, acting as temporary collectibles. With these blue gems across the map, I created a simple text UI that would act as a counter and created the script accordingly so that the number of gems collected goes up when the player collides with the gem. After getting that up and running, the player was missing some much needed footstep sounds, so I imported a few more assets for that and got that working by creating events at the exact frame that the player's foot was touching the floor. This game also has creepy ambient music as well as some items that the player can interact with. This interacting UI is definitely a work in progress though. So far it seems just like an ordinary game. You collect a few items and reach the end, but I did have an interesting idea to give it a cool twist. Once you collect all of the items in your map, your light gains a cool effect that lets you see things only when this effect is active. I achieved this by putting the text object under a certain layer called UI New Light, so whenever the player switches the light, the text is revealed. The way it works is by simply changing the camera culling mask whenever the player changes the flashlight effect, but I'm currently working on making it so you have to actually point the light on the object. Hopefully I can get that working for the next video. And this is where you guys come in. As I said before, I'm an absolute beginner when it comes to Unity and game development in general. All this progress took me almost 2 months to complete, and even in the end there were still bugs and things that didn't work as well as I wanted them to. But Once I got all those patched, I started to focus more on the environment by smoothing out the terrain, adding a few more mountains to give more realism to the world. Currently, the game has a great fear factor to it thanks to the music, but the only sense of danger really comes from the player's imagination. I strongly believe that showing less and keeping the player wondering is much scarier than giving a face to the threat. I know the direction that I want the game to go in, and I actually have an idea for the ending, but I would greatly appreciate your guys' feedback. As it stands, you can collect all the gems and enter a code to finish the game, but the true ending, or should I say multiple endings, are not too far behind. I don't want to show too much gameplay to keep the curiosity, but I would definitely appreciate feedback on how it looks, or if you guys have ideas of how I can script these objects to kind of work together better. I really want to make this my career, and well, we all got to start somewhere, I guess. Not only do I need to get my developing skills sharpened, but I also need to read up on legal issues as far as assets go and make sure I give credit to every asset used. So hopefully you guys can accompany me on this journey to try to release my very first Unity game. I have a really interesting idea that I pitched to a few of my friends, and so far they find the story and concepts to be pretty interesting. I honestly don't expect too much to come out of making these devlogs, but for those of you that enjoy these videos, I appreciate the support. Hopefully it serves as a good starting point for others to learn from too. Anyways, thanks for watching, and always remember, keep the lights on.